just turned on the recording. Fantastic. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Happy Thursday. Super excited to have you all here for the first DataPride Tableau user group event of 2024. I am one of your co-leads, Lauren Sturban. My pronouns are he, him, and so excited to be welcoming you all today. So looking at our agenda, we're going to start with just a welcome, happy 2024. We're going to look at some of the significant moments of 2023, just to look back, see where we've been over the last year. We're then going to look ahead, just some items that we're looking at for this coming year that both myself and Sarah have been looking at. And then onto our main focus for today, our wonderful presentation on data dev from the one and only Kyle Massey. And then we'll wrap things up and go from there. So first, welcome and happy 2024. We are so excited to be here and to be kicking off this year with this event and to have gone through and done so much over the last year and looking forward to what we are going to be doing. The community has been so great over the past almost 2 years of the DataPride Tableau user group, and it's just so energizing, everything. So we are so excited looking at 2024. It's a brand new year. It's 12 new months of events and things we can do to bring together the community. And we're looking at all that under the lens of what our purpose is, which is we are a virtual community space to highlight, elevate, and bring together the LGBTQ plus community in data and our allies. And, that's a whole year to be able to focus on this vision, to highlight, to elevate, and just bring everybody together. Now, as said, I am one of your co-leads, Lauren Sturban. My pronouns are he, him, his. And we have our lovely host as well, Sarah Carr, she, her, hers, who is there in video. Looks like she's in a library, which love books, so love that background. And we are so excited to be presenters here to bring these events to you. I know I personally could not have done half of what we've done for DataPride without Sarah this past year and a half, so it's been absolutely fantastic. Now, a look back at 2023. This year was absolutely crazy for the DataPride Tug. In this year, we gained 258 total members. We had 8 events. Out of all of our events from May through the end of the year, because we did have some changes in our event platforms, so some data is missing, we had 554 RSVPs with 213 attendees. That is great. That is just under 50% participation, which for events, you always try and get just 20-25. So it is absolutely fantastic. We had our first in-person event at TC 2023. If you look at the very picture at the very top left, it was such an amazing time being able to meet the DataPride Data fam and our allies. And we had individuals, I have to give huge shout outs to individuals like Kyle, like some of our fellow ambassadors from my Data FamCon team, Christina, and Nicole and Michelle and Preeti and others such as Elisa Davis and Kevin Lee, who were there also, who have presented here, who have been part of this, who were there talking to others there at TC. It was absolutely fantastic. We had our Data Plus Diversity June event highlight, which was such a fun time. And from Tableau, we had our August blog highlight from Tableau. And if you look, you can see that on the very right-hand side of the screen with my mug and Sarah's mug at actually our TC event. Was so great. And we had another year of our Back to the Basics collab. Was beautiful. And you cannot help but love some of the vizzes or all the vizzes that come out of that. And when we look back, we have to give a huge thank you to our 2023 speakers. We had 13 speakers across all of our events for the years, from Tableau visionaries, ambassadors, individuals just in the community. Here is just 8 of them: Brandy, Bridget, Elisa, Steve, Jennifer, Ginny, Erica, Ethan, as well as Lisa, Kimberly, Kate, Nicole, and Eric. It has been an amazing year for our presentations, everything from giving and receiving feedback to our Pride and second year anniversary, our first year anniversary, and everything on visualization and functional aesthetics, sets, so many things. It was absolutely fantastic. So we want to thank all 13 of our speakers for coming and sharing your knowledge and with this group. And 2023 would not have been a success without any of you who came to any of our events, who signed up for this group, anything. We would not be able to do and continue to do this without any of you. And so now we want to look a little bit forward to 2024. Now, I don't have any pictures or any like major releases or updates, but for 2024, we've got it kind of at first half, second half. First half is going to be leading to Tableau conference in the end of April in San Diego. So excited for it, cannot wait. But first half, we do have events already starting to be planned for February, March, and April. Our April event will include a little bit of a Know Before You Go TC session, which will be great. We will have Pride Month events. We're still working through all of those. We will have our third year of our Back to Viz Basics collab for Pride Month. We will be looking and doing some DataPride focused events at Data 24. We are still kind of working through some of that logistics, and we're going to be working with Tableau on that, but super excited to bring the DataPride data fam together again. We will be releasing a new DataPride Tug focused website based upon different things. We'll still be utilizing Bevy to register and for events, but we want to get some more things out there for the overall community. And we're going to have some more networking and connecting opportunities. Now, in the second half, we're going to have our 2-year anniversary, and we're going to recap Pride Month. We are so excited for that. It's 2 years of this tug, so, we got to really go hard for that. We're going to have some more events in August, September, October, and November. More networking and connecting opportunities. And what else? We're going to want to hear from you through the surveys here. We'll be getting a survey together for our members. But what else do you want to see this year, especially in the second half? What kind of items do you want to learn about? What things do you want to be able to do to see partnerships, networking? What? We're going to be reaching out to you for all of that. So high level, what we are looking at just for 2024, but it's going to be jam-packed, and especially this first half heading into Tableau conference and Pride Month. So me and Sarah got a little bit of work cut out for us. Now, without further ado, I want to introduce one of the fabulous data fam, Tableau Data Dev Ambassador, Vice President of Business Intelligence and Software Engineering at JP Morgan Chase, and leader of Tableau Coders, and one of the best friends I've made since meeting him last year at Tableau Conference, Kyle Massey. Kyle.
Thank you so much, Lawrence. Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you, Lawrence and Sarah, for inviting me to speak today. I'm so excited to be here. I love this tug since I got involved and started attending last year, so always means a lot to be able to talk about things that I enjoy. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we will dive into data dev. So you're going to get the infinite mirror effect here for just a second, and then I'm gonna pull up a presentation.
It's dataception. It's dataception.
Right. Yeah, we all like that kind of stuff, right? So I'll skip this one. So just a little bit of an introduction. Lawrence covered us, but just to give a little bit more background. Again, my name is Kyle Massey. You see my Twitter handle and my email there. Always willing to talk on the side if you want to reach out. A note about my presentation. In the bottom of most of the slides, you're going to see a QR code, and it's usually just going to be what I'm talking about on that slide. So if you want to some people like to scan it right away and have it at the ready. But at the very last slide is also a table that has all of the QR codes and what they link to. So don't feel like you have to scan them all now. All the links are also in sort of the appendix there. So now that that's out of the way, so a little bit more about me. As Lawrence said, I am a Tableau Data Dev Ambassador. I'm currently in my second year in a row with that honor. I'm very, very excited to be able to continue doing what I do for that community. I am a member of the Tableau Center of Excellence at JP Morgan Chase. Specifically, I'm a lead software engineer, which means I manage people. So in addition to the software engineering that I do, I also manage 3 full-time employees and a consultant currently. And my team represents the automation for all of business intelligence at JPMC. So not just Tableau, but also other tools such as, think of like your Cognos and your ThoughtSpot, other more traditional and kind of cutting edge tools. We do automation for all of that. I am originally from the Cincinnati, Ohio area, but I've lived in Columbus since 2004 when I moved up here to go to the Ohio State University and never left. Just Columbus became my home very quickly. I live with my partner, Dan, who is in the second picture there, the circular picture with the orangish sunglasses. And we have 2 pets, a dog named Kevin and a cat named Willie, who you can see in the bottom picture there. When I'm not doing nerdy stuff, data dev or Tableau related stuff, I'm an avid video gamer. I love true crime, anything. And I fancy myself a hobby handyman. So I enjoy small house projects. I don't touch electricity or plumbing now. So that's just a little bit more about me. So moving on. So the topic today is data dev. I can't see the chat right now because I've got this presentation over top of it, but I would be willing to guess that more than half of the people in the chat or in the event today have heard people talk about data dev, but probably 2/3 to half of them maybe don't know exactly what that is. So my goal today is to just give you a little bit of a preview into our world, into the data dev world, and kind of show you that I think it's a lot more approachable than a lot of people think it is. You don't have to be some big time software engineer to be a data dev. And in fact, some of the best ideas that come through these channels, straight to Tableau's ears, come from what you would call a citizen developer, someone who dabbles because they have a specific need. And what I'm going to show you today is how easy Tableau makes that, just the community and the offerings that they have. So what or who is a data dev? So I've got a screenshot on the left here of just kind of Tableau's answer to this question. And really what it is, these are your folks who do things any kind of a little bit extra, so to speak. I've been described as extra before, so it's fitting. So not just I put together a workbook and now I want to publish it. I also want to automate part of that. Maybe I have data coming in from a bunch of different places, and I want to use something like Python to create a clean data set for people to use with Tableau Desktop. Or to take a more real world for my scenario, I work at a huge behemoth of a financial institution that has controls and regulations and restrictions around everything. And the only way to get stuff done, such as maybe promoting something from dev or UAT into production, is to automate it because of controls, humans can't just be writing into production. Those are the kinds of things that we think about as data devs, is how can we support the people that, whether they're our customers or our users or our clients, whichever, how can we support what they need to do in Tableau and kind of take away the extra stuff so they can focus, or we can focus on actually using Tableau, the platform, to get the insights and deliver for our stakeholders. So on the right-hand side of the screen, what you'll see there is all of the current Tableau data dev ambassadors. So you can see me on there. And I know every single one of these people pretty well. Some just geographically, I don't get the pleasure to speak to as often, but definitely encourage everyone to look up all of these people on X or Twitter or LinkedIn or Slack, either of us. We're all an enthusiastic group. We love talking about data dev stuff. And these are just, in my opinion, good people to know, because we're kind of your nerds in the background, as I like to say. So moving on a little bit. So one thing I would be remiss if I didn't, as a data dev ambassador, if I didn't start off by talking about tableau.com/developer. The QR code on that page does go here, and I'm going to pull it up as well. Also have to point out, this is Trex the T-Rex. These are ambassador cohorts mascot, and he is definitely the cutest mascot. So just throwing that out there. But if I go ahead and just kind of show you what is offered on tableau.com/developer, this is the screen that you saw before. Oh, I need to sign in really quick. Excuse me. Get me signed in here. No, not sign in with Salesforce. Darn it. I don't know if anybody else who uses stuff on tableau.com noticed that they recently moved some things around. So anyway, so now that I'm signed in, I have the option here to sign up for the developer program. That will get me in on the newsletter. It will start getting me invitations for things like sprint reviews from the devs at Tableau. Basically, kind of your first peek behind the curtain is just signing up here. But one of the biggest, most important things that you can get from being a member of, for being in the data dev program is you can actually come in here and sign up for your own developer sandbox. So this developer sandbox, if I were to click on here, I already have one, so it's not going to let me go through this. But this is, and we'll see it when I get into some of my examples, this developer sandbox is a fully functional little site on Tableau Cloud. So it's always on the latest version. It is totally free. You have access to just about everything you would from an API perspective from a paid site. You're limited to like 3 total licenses, so you can't really use it for anything production wise, but it is the perfect place to dive into this stuff, play around, break stuff outside of your work installation, which you obviously got to be careful with. But your first step on the journey, first 2 steps, sign up at tableau.com/developer and go ahead and set up your Tableau, or your developer sandbox site. And when I get into some examples, I will be working out of that site. And so you'll see that it works just like anything else. So that's my plug for tableau.com/developer. And as this is pretty much everything I already said, so I'll just keep it moving so we can get to the good stuff. The next little plug that I want to give before I get started, if you are interested after seeing some of the content today and you want to start from the beginning, this is a good solution for you. So I run another user group called the Tableau Coders Initiative, and co-lead with Tableau visionary Zach Geis. And we've structured our tug thus far to being a series at a time, and we'll take a series and maybe spend 5 or 6 meetings or episodes, however you want to think about them, starting from ground zero on series 1, you want to use the REST API. This is what an API is. This is how you talk to an API. All the way through, now let's build an entire little application that automates some task using a combination of the APIs. We start, like I said, from this is how you download an IDE that lets you even write a line of code through now you've got a finished product. Same thing at the end of last year. We did that with the embedding series, and we talked about just what is HTML, what's CSS, what's JavaScript. So the link there and the QR code will take you to our user group on YouTube, and then we are also on Bevy as well. So if you're interested, we are on a hiatus. We expect to kick back off sometime in February. So if you want to go ahead and join our group, you'll be notified when we schedule our first event for 2024. So that's just another plug there. And let's get into the good stuff now. So the world of data dev. And when I say a world, I hope this becomes obvious. There's no one way to be a data dev. And there's no, and oftentimes, like someone like me, where my job is more or less a data dev job, I do a little bit of all of it. So, but that doesn't mean you have to. But let's just take a look here on the next screen. What I have here, which is available, the QR code tableau.com/developer/tools. But this is just a sample of the data dev tools or APIs or SDKs, different integrations here, that Tableau makes available, for free to anyone who has a Tableau site, including the developer sandbox that I mentioned before. And I'm not going to go all the way into everything you see here, but just you can see how diverse we have here. So the embedding API. So you want to put your Tableau content into a web page or your web application. The REST API, you want to automate things. The extensions, dashboards extensions API. So think of that as almost like embedding in reverse. You're taking a little application and putting it inside of your dashboard. The analytics extension API for creating custom visualizations. The web data connector for getting data from APIs. And the list just goes on and on and on and on and on. So depending on what it is the solution you need or the problem you need to solve, odds are tableau.com/developer/tools has some API or SDK or knowledge article that will kind of get you where you need to go. So what I'm going to do for the rest of the presentation is give you some examples of some of the big heavy hitters amongst these tools. I'm not going to go too technical on them because I don't want to overwhelm or lose anybody here, since this is an introductory call. But if there are things that you wish to know or want to know more about or have questions, I think Lawrence and Sarah are watching the chat for me, so throw them in there, or I'll try to leave time at the end for questions. But this is more about inspiration and showing you maybe the art of the possible with some of these tools. And then if we want to dig in a little deeper, happy to do that as well. So the first thing that we'll start off with is the REST API and TSC, which is a Python, and Python's really big in the data world. So a lot of people are probably at least somewhat familiar with Python. TSC is a library for Python made by Tableau to interact with the REST API in a way that feels more like Python. So that may make sense. If it doesn't make sense, don't worry about it for now. So what is a REST API? What is Tableau's REST API? The QR code here goes to their documentation, which is where this quote is from. But at a high level, Tableau describes it as an API where you can manage and change sites, prep resources, gives you a functionality to data sources, projects, workbooks, users, sites, flow, etc. Basically, if you want to upload a new workbook, change a workbook, change permissions, all of these tasks that you would normally do by going into the UI and clicking on a 3-dot menu or a hamburger menu somewhere, odds are you can automate these with the REST API. So like I said there, you can use it to query information, save time by automating tasks. And one thing that I want to highlight here at the bottom that I'll show in just a second, Tableau loves to give people a head start on some of these things because they really do want people to extend kind of the out-of-box experience. So Salesforce/Tableau put together a Postman library that contains all of the requests for the REST API, and I'll show you what that means in a second. But that's huge when it comes. Not a lot of software companies do this. So just by clicking on this link and downloading a file, I now have something that I can use that, sorry, did not open Postman. Let me do that really quick. That I just, instead of having to look at a document and copy and paste and go back and forth, I just have a library of requests available to me. Sorry, I'm going to drag it on the screen as soon as Postman decides to open. Here we go. So I've got within the Tableau REST API, this is what I downloaded. I've got all of these folders to do all of the different things that the API allows me to do. And if I expand one of these, so like workbooks and views, I can add tags, I can delete the workbook, I can publish a workbook, query the views. I mean, all of those types of things. And what what Postman is, if there are folks who aren't familiar. Typically, when you talk about APIs and things like that, you are talking about writing code that makes a call, gets a response, and then displays something on your screen or updates a database or whatever the case may be. Postman is a tool that allows you to do those types of things in a more visual way, and kind of test the responses that you get so that you know what's going to happen before you kind of put it in code and say, well, I hope it works. So just to put a little context around there. So what I can actually do here as an example with the REST API and Postman, using this library that's available at the QR code and the link in the document, I see all these different methods that I can do. So as usual, the first thing that I need to do to interact with a system is authenticate. This is a pretty standard way of doing it with APIs like this, like REST APIs. I'm going to make a call that's going to give me a token, and then I include that token with my future calls, and that's how the API knows he's legit, he's allowed to do this, et cetera, et cetera. So to give you the basic structure, and again, we won't spend too much time breaking all of these apart, but the basic structure here, as you can see here in the body of this request, I'm just saying I'm making a Tableau server request, and here are some credentials. The other great thing about a Postman and about the library that's offered by Tableau is it includes an environment. And what that means is that I can use variables here. So I don't need to go in and update every single one of these with my username and password or with the token that I get back. These variables take care of it for me. So not necessarily a topic for today, but if you were just kind of experimenting, you can kind of see this is my username, this is my password, and this is the site that I want to interact with. So if I hit send on this, you'll see what I get back as a response inside of this. This is XML. You can also interact with the API in JSON. Some people are probably more familiar with that. It's a little bit easier to read, in my opinion, but XML is the default. But you can see buried inside of this response, I have a token here now. And this token is invalidated as soon as I use it, so I don't mind that y'all are seeing it. But now that I have this token, I include that in my other requests, and now I can start doing real things. So if I skip over to, if I jump over to another request here, which is query workbooks for site. So this is I just want to see all of the workbooks that are on the specified site. So we can see here, there's no body because this is what's called a GET request, which is basically just I hit a URL and I expect it to give me something back. Whereas this is a POST request, meaning I hit a URL and I include some information that the recipient processes, authenticates with, whatever, and then they send a response. So for this one, I'm just saying, give me everything. So as soon as I hit send, you can see here, this is a little bit hard to read. Let me see if there's a prettier one. There we go. So now that it's formatted a little bit better, you can see that the server responded to me almost right away with this first object just tells me about pages. So this is page number 1 of the results. The size of the page is 100 and there are 24. So logically, that means this is the only page. But you can see here now for each workbook in my project, I'm getting back an object. This is a JSON object about things about them. So I've got the project ID, the owner, if it had any tags, the URL, show tabs, et cetera, et cetera. So I could take this and I could apply more logic to these and start filtering out things that were updated after a certain date, or search for things by name, search for things by views, and et cetera, et cetera. So depending on the type of problem that you're trying to solve, just look at this. There are so many things that you can do in here. I can create an extract. I can refresh an extract. I can I can create schedules. All of those things, anything that you would be looking to automate, you can definitely take a stab at it through this API. And to show you that in a more practical sense, I am going to show you a small little application This is just a just for fun application that uses the REST API and a front-end website, or it's really a JavaScript framework to automate some tasks to kind of show you what I mean when I talk about how you can save time for yourself. So if I pull this URL up, all right, so we can see here. So I've got just a simple little form here. I've got some tabs at the top for onboard, publish, automated cleanup. So let's just start with publish content. Let's see what that would look like. So again, thinking about the situation that's very near and dear for me at work, not being able, or most users not being able to just sign into Tableau Desktop and then publish to prod. It doesn't work that way in a lot of larger organizations. There's a clear separation of duties. There's very few people who have administrative or anything other than read-only privileges. And this is a way, if you have maybe a support team or a way for folks to come in and make a request to have something published, we're thinking that kind of workflow here. So what you can see here is what's going on in the background. So we'll use the methods listed here to actually do what we're doing. So we will first sign in, get a list of projects. I will provide a file, and then we will publish it to the server, and it will automatically sign me out. So I already hit the button here, and I can see that this is a live list of projects from my Sandbox site. So it has already queried my site to get the available projects. I'm going to pick a project there, and then let me grab a workbook. We'll try this one. And if you were doing this in a like a production type environment, you could also just have this be a file selector. But for this demo, I'm just doing this. So I've given it the path to where the file is and the project I want it to land in. I'm going to hit publish. And in a few moments here, I should get your workbook has been published. Click here to view on Tableau server. So there we go. That I was able to automate publishing a workbook. I didn't have to like log into Tableau Desktop in one server and then download it and log into another and do all that. I can just do that through a simple form. So same thing. What about like an automated cleanup? If you're in a big, huge environment where hygiene is an issue, if you got folks that just create copies of things and leave them there indefinitely, like I know we do, you might want to be able to come in and say, let me just identify stuff that should be deleted because it's old, nobody's using it, hasn't been modified, whichever. So I'm using the same REST API library. I'm going to sign in, get a filtered list of the workbooks based on their modified date, and return that list here. So let's just say I want to look for anything that hasn't been modified in the last 3 months. So I'll just go back 3 months and pick October 18th and then click on Find Items. And now I will get just a pop-up with a list of items when they were modified and then a delete button. These delete buttons, I will tell you, are dummies, but there is a REST API call that can very easily delete things using this same flow. So that's another thing that you could, I guess, export a list or to use the API just to get a list and then do some ETL and get what's modified where, or you could build an interface like this. Another big one that's big for us at Chase is onboarding. Onboarding is a pain in the butt. It involves creating a bunch of groups and onboarding users and creating multiple instances of the project and so on and so forth. I want to show you how easily this is automated. So I'm just going to give it a project name. So I'm going to call it DataPride Rockstars because you're all rock stars. I'm going to give it, let's just call this group name the same thing, but users. And then I'm going to give it an initial user to add to the group. So if you think about it, these are all things that would take, they would use at least 5, 6, 7 steps in here, creating the project, creating the group, creating the user, adding the user to the group, and then giving the group permissions to the project. So you can see that kind of step here. So if I click on create, it takes a few seconds just to process. And then I will get a pop-up with some details about what was done. So the actions have been completed. I have a new project. There's its ID, new group, there's its ID, et cetera, et cetera. And if I hop over to my site here again, and go to Explore just to prove that I wasn't lying. Here's the project that was just created a few moments ago. And if I go into the project and look at its permissions, here's the group. It already has some permissions applied, and there's the user. So I was able to automate something, or my team, to put this in a real world context. This was the onboarding process at Chase for a new Tableau project. Just somebody come in and say, we want a space on server. Used to be approximately a month. It now takes about 15 minutes. So that's really just the power of harnessing the REST API specifically, and the capabilities in Python to just automate things that they're the same every time. They're very manual. They can be error prone, and they just don't make people happy. So I hope that is a preview that makes a little sense, put some context on the REST API. So I already talked about the Postman library here, so I'm going to skip forward. This is just a screenshot. I know that when I go back and look at presentations, a screenshot of something that I saw jogs my memory, so that's why I included this here. But I talked a little bit about the Python library that's going on in the background here. If you are familiar with Python, this might be an easier way for you to get started with the REST API. So I'm including that documentation as well. And then this is a preview of a screenshot of some of the code and then the UI that we were just looking at. That QR code, and again, all of these links are at the end of the presentation as well, but this QR code is a link to my GitHub where I have all of the code for both the back end that you see on the left and the front end that you see on the right. So steal it, break it, change it, modify it, I don't care. If there's anything in there that's useful for anyone on this, I'd rather you take it from me than waste your time coding it again. So moving on to another hot topic in the data visualization world right now, which is embedded analytics. And what we mean by that is taking your Tableau experience and putting it inside of a web application or really any other application, and making that experience, making a truly unique experience. So I've got Tableau's blurb about it again, QR code to the main page there, the same link that's there. And basically, the most important part that I take from this: differentiate your product with embedded analytics and discover new growth opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. The differentiation part is what's big here. You're always going to have people that they want to use Tableau for the handling the data and the security and the scalability and all of that stuff, but they don't want it to look like Tableau necessarily. And that's where embedded analytics shows off its powers here. So like I've said, make it part of a web page or your application, create entirely new ways for your users to interact with your content. And we'll see that in a moment. And then Tableau also offers, if you Google the Embedded Analytics Playground, they actually, you know what, I have the chance. I will go ahead and pull that up. The Embedded Analytics Playground is, it's been around for maybe 3 or 4 months. It just went into general availability. I got a preview of it last year from one of the developers at Tableau, and it's very, very, very helpful for folks who want to get started with embedding, but maybe don't really want to dive too much into JavaScript. So it's the embedding playground here at developers.salesforce.com. I'm just going to start with the quick sample viz. But what this does is allows you to do sort of drag and drop code blocks of your embedded viz here. So it automatically gives you what you need just to get started, just to have something embedded inside of your page here. But if I wanted to say, I want to know when a mark changes on a given worksheet. So I can drag this card that's labeled get selected marks under worksheet and then marks. If I drag this in and drop it, I get code for how to monitor the selected marks. I can do the same thing for, let's say I want a parameter. I want to change the value of a parameter within my workbook. I drag that in and it gives me the code on what I need to do. Now, there's some minimal changes based on if you're, some of the names won't match. But for people who aren't really super interested in learning a whole bunch of JavaScript, but they want to embed something, they want to make it look really nice, they want to add their own types of interactions. We didn't have anything like this when I first started learning how to do the embedding. So this is a great tool for just playing around. But
So Kyle, talking about
yeah,
embedding. So when
yeah,
I think initially of embedding, I think of taking the iframe share URL of a workbook and copying that, putting it into HTML, and just having the iframe embedded. What is the difference between that and the embedding that you're showing or we're showing? You stepped screen share. So,
oh, did my screen share it? Okay,
yes.
let me start that.
And that embedding that you're talking about here.
Yes, and I'm glad you said that. I'm going to start my screen share again. There's no disadvantage to doing just the share link and doing it that way, because in a lot of use cases, we really do just want it to sit inside of a web page, and that's it. What I'll show here in just a second is when you take advantage of the full embedded experience using either like that playground and the JavaScript library, you can do things outside of your visualization. So actually, that's just a great place to transition over here. So I will pull up my next example for the embedding. One thing I usually give this caveat at the beginning. I'm a developer, not a designer, so I know that this stuff isn't always the prettiest. But if you're lucky enough, I'm lucky enough to work with a designer at work, so I don't have to think about this stuff most of the time. But so now while this loads up, what you can see right away is that, yes, I have these Tableau visualizations as part of my web page like you would get by doing the iframe or the share link. But now I also have these other parts of the web page that are not coming from Tableau that have data from Tableau. So just on the left-hand side, I'm using the data, just the data in the viz to give me basically my max and my min, my date range, my number of marks, my number of rows. So all things that, yeah, you could include that information as part of your visualization. But if you want to build a totally custom experience where different parts of the web page do this kind of thing or contain this information, instead of always having to find a way to do it in Tableau, this is where the kind of heavier embedding comes in. And on that note, now I can see that, okay, this viz here on the left has two filters. Well, what if I don't like the way, and I don't like the way that filters and menus and things like that tend to look in Tableau? There's not a whole lot of customization. In my mind, they just look very outdated. So what if I can do this instead? I can create native web components that will change my filter values for me. I can make these a slider, or you can even go crazy and make like a drag and drop experience if that's what you wanted to do, and have it update your viz just as though I were clicking in here. Normally, if you were going to do this, you wouldn't include the filters in two places. This is just to kind of make it obvious what's happening. So I have control over both filters independently, or I can do them together. I can basically clear them. So again, that's on the left-hand side, some of the stuff that you get that you wouldn't necessarily get just by doing that iframe, to answer your question, Lawrence. And then on the other side, on the right-hand side, now I'm showing a parameter interaction. So I've got some of the same stuff at the top in terms of a min, max, number of marks, number of rows. However, now when I change my parameter to a different metric, it's going to update again. And now it tells me, based on the metric of average discount, there's a different top city, there's a different bottom city. And you can see here that these, again, this is a parameter, but it changes, it updates my viz, and you can see that it matches here. So again, this is not, I wouldn't call this a very pretty example, but it's an example that shows once you get into the big leagues of embedding with the true API, you don't even have to include the viz. I've seen examples before where someone embedded a viz, but then basically made it invisible and made a D3 visualization with the data on Tableau server. So it really is the difference between kind of carving out a little hole for your content to live in versus making your content part of the application from the top to the bottom. So hopefully that gives a little bit of clarity, a little more clarity on the embedding side of things. Oh, darn it, started me back at the beginning. 1 second, let me get caught up. Okay, so there's a screenshot of that. Again, the GitHub QR code to all of the code that was there. And I think that brings me to the end on embedded, unless there were any other questions that I could answer on that now. If not, I will just keep moving along.
Nope, nothing in the chat or Q&A right now, but thank you for the answer. So fantastic. Yes, if you have questions, please post them in chat in QA as we keep going, and we'll answer as we go through.
Perfect. All right, well then I will continue on to the next thing that I want to show you, and that is dashboard extensions. And I think I kind of made the comment earlier, but it's kind of the same thing. If we almost think about this, and this is why they're back to back, we can almost think of extensions as embedding what we just saw in reverse. So instead of taking my Tableau content and putting it inside of a web page or an application, I'm going to take an application and put it inside of my dashboard. And, the question obviously becomes, why would I want to do something like that? Well, again, it's all about creating a custom experience or extending an experience that might not be possible out of the box. And I'll obviously show you an example in a second, but think of some really popular extensions that we probably all heard of when the first time we heard about extensions. Things like export all, boo, but there's always going to be users that want it, so it serves a purpose. There's also extensions out there for database write back, so users being able to actually make a change that persists in a database inside of a Tableau dashboard. There's another really popular one called super tables that takes the native this is a tongue twister, native Tableau table experience and really ramps it up. So those are different kinds of things that you can do with an extension, but really, again, it's about creating an experience that you want or that your users want. So what does that look like in practice here? So what I'm going to do now is actually open up Tableau Desktop. So I'll go over here. So we can see, I've got a very simple dashboard in front of us here. I could use this to do what I wanted. But again, I want my users to be able to do something a little bit more than just the out of the box stuff in here. So if you've ever noticed, one of the objects that you can drag into a dashboard is an extension. And if you've never done that, this is what happens when you drag it in. So I'm just going to drag it into this top right corner here and let go. And it's going to bring up a prompt that's add an extension. Now, Tableau offers an extension marketplace or exchange. I can't remember exactly what they call it. That has some really, really good stuff, some really popular stuff. Some of it's behind a paywall, some of it's not. So your mileage kind of varies on what that is, depending on what you need. But there's a lot of good stuff in here. There are also what they call sandboxed extensions. And this is going to be important to people who have very high controls and data security concerns. Sandbox extensions means that Tableau has verified that they neither access the internet nor send data anywhere else. That is one thing. Since these are little applications, you do want to be careful and not just anything, because if it has access to the internet, that could be a problem depending on your area of your professional area or business. So, but for now, I'm just going to add a local extension. This is an extension that's on my computer. So I will just click on this option, and it's going to have me look for a file here. So if I go into this folder, so the files that power these extensions are called Trex or T-Rex files. That's where our mascot came from. And basically they just give Tableau Desktop the instructions on how to access this extension, where it's hosted, et cetera, et cetera. So if I double click on this, come in, it will give me one more warning. It didn't warn me this time, I think, because I already did it earlier. But now you can see within my dashboard, I have another object that, obviously I've used colors to make it sort of look like it belongs here. But I mean, these are things that you could not really do in Tableau, at least not with a lot of hacking. So these toggles here, these are web. This is them using a framework called Vue.js, or some of you might be familiar with React, which is another popular one. But this is not these icons, these divs and sheet names and titles, these are not coming from Tableau. These are coming from the application. Now, the application is reading this name. So if I were to say, for example, change this to sales dashboard, even though it's not really what it is, and then refresh the extension, reload the extension, it's actually querying that. So it's customized to what it's dropped into. As you can see here, I've got sheets called dot bar line table, and I can toggle them. Now, there are built-in ways to toggle sheet visibility on a dashboard. We all know that, but not like this, not with smooth little sliders that are part of a web application versus like kind of I would say, not the prettiest buttons that you can make in dashboards and things like that. You'll also notice here, I've got a link to download a CSV or download an Excel for each sheet. And I've also got an export all for everything to Excel. So if I go ahead and click on this, it's going to ask me where I want to save this. It'll download it, and you could do this. Obviously, you could do this from within Tableau server as well. So just to kind of get out of the way. What's happening? Out of the way. There we go. Sales dashboard. So if I pull this up and show you, once it comes up, here we go. Now I've got a file that has a sheet for each one of them with the actual marks data. So again, these are the point of extensions and embedding and some of the other things that we've discussed. We're really getting into the realm of, okay, Tableau, what you do is great, what you offer me is great, but it's not good enough. Or I want to do something a little bit more creative. I want to set myself apart, or I have power users that need their dashboard for something like this. They need it to be sort of a one-stop. They can't go one place to look at it, another place to download it, and another place to maybe compare two side by side instead of just one. There's any use case you can think of, you can kind of develop into an extension. So that, I think, brings me to the end of there. It keeps doing that to me. Sorry. All right, let's get back. So we are on extensions. And there, again, the screenshot, GitHub with all of the code for that extension. And, again, if I will pause before I move into the next topic, if there's any questions that came out of that one.
Nope. Good to go.
All right then. Well, I'm trying to slow down a little bit because maybe we'll have some questions at the end. So another big one that can save a lot of time, and I gave this example earlier, is the Hyper API. So I think we're all familiar with Hyper files as Tableau data sources. They've been around for a few versions now. But Hyper is actually a technology that was bought by Tableau and then integrated with their system. It's a proprietary format for optimization. That's probably familiar to most people. But what this API allows us to do is to create Hyper files directly. If there are any Alteryx users in the house, it's similar to the output tool that allows you to take your data, do your ETL, and output it to a Hyper. Obviously, Tableau Prep will allow you to do the same thing. But sometimes Maybe I don't have a license for prep, or maybe I'm more comfortable doing data science type stuff in Python or C plus if you're a crazy person. But there are versions of the API available for multiple languages. The example that I'm going to show today is for Python. But basically, if I'm the use case that I'm going to show, and actually I'll just drag it over now and kind of describe it as we go. So let's imagine that I work for a sales company and I have two systems that I rely on for data to visualize in Tableau. I have one system that gives me orders. So I've got a table full of orders and I've got their employee ID. And then I have another system, my people system, that will give me a CSV with my employees in it. Very common joining operation for anyone who's maybe familiar with SQL or Prep or Alteryx. But this is another way that we can accomplish this without doing like a VLOOKUP or any of our old friends from Excel. We can actually use very little Python to combine these two sets of data into one and then write that directly to a hyperfile. So let me show you just a little bit about what's going on with this one, and we will do a preview of what we get. So if you're not a Python person, or if you've never seen Python before, please don't glaze over too much. There's not a lot here. I'll explain it line by line, and we'll just talk about what you can do with this here. So we're using a very popular data science tool called Pandas. If you've not heard of it, if you take any sort of data science class in Python, this will come up. It's a very well-known, very flexible, very powerful library that just does a lot of things that you need to do when you're doing things like this. So if you can see there, starting on, and I'll actually zoom in just a little bit. I know these can get a little small on screen shares. So starting on line 10, so I've got my orders data frame, which is I'm reading from orders.csv, and then next I'm getting my employees from employees.csv. So far, pretty simple. The next thing that I'm going to do is merge the two. And a data frame is just a Pandas thing, basically a representation of the data as a table in memory that can be manipulated with other commands. So when I have two of them and I want to merge them, just like a SQL join, I'm using a merge here. So on line 16 and 17, you can see here that I'm joining my left table, which is orders, my right table, employees. How I want it to be an inner join. So again, if you're a SQL person, you have like inner, left, right, full outer, etc. This is, it's a one-to-one. So I just want an inner join here. And the column in my left table that I want to join on is called employee ID. And on the right table, it's called ID. And just to remind everyone of the structure of that real quick, I've got orders with an employee ID, and that employee ID aligns with this ID from my quote unquote employees table. And so if I hop back in here, so now we've got a combined data set based on a SQL inner join between a foreign key that exists in a foreign and a primary key. The next thing we're going to do, because just like in a SQL join, now we're going to have tables that have repeating columns because they both have an ID column in them. Pandas automatically adds a Y and an X to me for anything that's joined that has a duplicate name. So all I'm saying here on line 21 is I don't want these columns anymore. Axis is just, won't worry about that. And in place means I don't want you to create a copy of the data. I want you to actually drop it from the data frame that I'm working with. And then kind of one of the last couple of steps here is I do want this data to have an ID field, but now that I've joined it, the original ID fields are not right. So I'm basically just adding an ID based off of the index or the row number +1, because counting in most programming languages starts at 0 instead of 1. So that's how I just say for each row in there, assign a column called index, or excuse me, assign a column called ID, which is the rows index plus 1. So that's how we get our data ready. Now coming down in here, Tableau and Pandas have worked together on a library called PanTab. So Pandas Tableau. It makes things super easy. You can see here from on line 43, all I'm doing is saying import, which is Python's way of saying I want to use this library. And then from then on, I can call things from there. So you can see there is a method or a function called pantab.frame to hyper. It's that simple. I give it the data frame that I manipulated up above and where I want it to create, what the path to the file that I want it to create, and then the table name within the hyper. A hyper file does have table names. Now that is all well and good. I'll run this. Let me. Oops. I'm gonna do what's called commenting these so that only that first part runs. So if I run this, now you can see over on the left, I now have in here orders.hyper that just showed up. So if I go into Tableau and go to open and navigate, okay, I'm already in there. So if I go to orders.hyper and open this, now I've got my combined data set as a flat hyper file, totally optimized. I also realized that that says New Torque instead of New York, but that's fun. You can tell this is made up data. But just like anything else, now that I've got this in here, I can start, doing what I want. So if I want to put in, let's say, let's do it this way. Let's do the salesperson's name, the city that they work out of, and then let's just do like let's just do average profit. So you can see within a matter of seconds, I took 2 CSVs and combined them into one hyper file that I can then start playing with, start doing what I need to do from a data perspective right away. The next thing that I'll show is the Hyper API offered by Tableau does offer some more flexibility. Like if I want to create multi-table hypers, or if I want to change instead of creating and replacing, I can do insert. So if I want to take an existing hyper and add to it, or do maybe more like an incremental refresh of the data, it gives me the ability to change the database version if I know what I'm doing and I need to. So this same process, everything that happens from lines 66 through 86 happens in the background via line 45. So just pointing out how much time is saved by PanTab. It is still supported by Tableau, but the Tableau Hyper API, if you want to do it all manually and really get the full experience and customization options, then there is a full API as well. And just to show that, I will hit run in this file again. And just like before, now I have a new orders underscore hyper API dot hyper. And since this is from the same original data set in Pandas, obviously we would expect that it would look and behave exactly the same way. But just to prove that to you, because I don't like being a liar, if I bring this up, I see all the same things that I saw before. I can do name, city, and just like before, right now it thinks profit is it thinks that, oh, I know why. That's that is one of the things that is a little bit different here. So I initially in the Hyper API, everything comes out as a string unless you tell it otherwise. So that is one difference here. But now that I've just changed the data type in Tableau, I can do the same thing I did before. So another way, ETL tools are expensive. And so if you're at a smaller organization, or sometimes it's just not, the juice isn't worth the squeeze to create a big prep flow or a big flow in Alteryx or whatever. And sometimes you just want to do it in some Python, also an option. So that was kind of just to reinforce. We went through a lot of different stuff, a lot of different use cases. solving a lot of different problems. But I hope there was something in there, at least a little something for everyone to get your inspiration going. Think about how you can automate things or modernize things or create experiences that you can't get right out of the box. So that does bring me to the end of my demos, but I do want to throw out one last thing, and that is Tableau and Salesforce are hosting a Tableau Data Dev Hackathon this year. It started at the end of last year. It goes through March of this year. This is open to anyone. There are some exclusions. If you're interested, check it out. Some geographic exclusions. I didn't see anybody on this call who that would apply to, but basically Tableau does these typically 2 times a year. And they're open. It's just an open challenge to do something data dev, bring it to the forefront and get feedback on it. The winners this year, I believe, you can have up to 4 people on a team. The winning team all get to go to TC for free this year. So if you're even a little bit interested, I would just encourage you. There's no cost. It's just like anything else in the data fam. Us data devs, the people who support us at Tableau, are all about giving feedback, all about everyone being included. So don't think you have to be a professional developer to participate in events like that. In fact, I think it makes it better when there is a mixed population, because sometimes people who are developers like me get tunnel vision and we tend to think about the same things nonstop. So having a fresh perspective and somebody going like, well, I have this problem that no one's talking about, really makes a difference. So just another plug for that. And again, you can register with the QR code if you're interested. And then that brings me to the end. So I'm going to minimize this so I can see the chat. But I do have the links here to my X/Twitter, GitHub, and LinkedIn. Happy to connect on any of those offline, talk about any of these topics more in depth. So please, don't hesitate. I am going to then switch back here. Oh, we're going to get an infinite. Here, I'll drag that over here and then leave this minimized. All right.
Yep.
All right.
So Kyle, there are 2 questions currently in the Q&A. From the first one is from Alice. So back on talking about adding Tableau components. Adding Tableau components on a Salesforce page is also considered embedded analytics? I believe so.
It is, and then I actually confirmed on a call not that long ago that it uses the same API. It used to be that the Tableau components in Salesforce were pretty hacky. And within the last release or 2, when you do that, when you drag a Tableau component into your Salesforce workspace, what you're basically doing is what I showed you. You're creating a little component that's a little web page that has Tableau embedded in it. And because of the way it's embedded, it's available to be interacted with via other actions, i.e. the other things that you have in your Salesforce setup. So yes, that's exactly what it is.
Fantastic. And then the other question from Alice, and Pandas and Tableau Prep having the same functionality. And I think you noted that there, especially from the hyper perspective, is that you can utilize Python and Pandas to do the hyper extract and do all that work, that in the same way that Tableau Prep, an ETL tool like Tableau Prep or Alteryx or those things would, correct?
Correct. And one of the big differentiations, I would say, one of the reasons that I might use something like Python over something like Prep or Alteryx in a situation like that, where my ultimate goal was to take separate things, massage them, and then create a data source, comes down to where is this data coming from? Tableau and Prep, I will say we are an Alteryx house, so I don't know Prep as well as I should, but I have played around with it a little. Tableau, Prep, and Alteryx both are not great when it comes to JSON, in terms of if I'm getting data from an API or some system that returns it to me in JSON, it's a lot easier, in my opinion, dealing with JSON in Python than it is in either one of those tools. So that could be, you know, if you're in a situation like that, or if you're in a situation where, you know, internally when we authenticate against a lot of the APIs, we need a token, and we have an outside token service, sort of like what I showed in Postman, where we make that request first, and then everything we do with the API needs to include this token. Tableau Prep and Alteryx don't always handle that very well either, or it becomes so complicated that it's, you know, you're spending more time and engineering that. It's all about your level of interest, and like the kind of common theme through a lot of these is Tableau has done a lot to make us be able to do a lot in you know, out of the box ways. Where you really start thinking like a data dev is, but is this good enough? Can I do it better? Can I automate it? Can I save time? Can I save somebody else time by doing it this way? Usually when you start asking yourselves that sort of question, that's when you'll start to kind of decide which solution is best.
Yeah. No, talking and going in on that, you know, in previous roles that I've had, we were doing it all ourselves, and we're doing some forms of hacky things of like adding a tag to a workbook to then have a script automatically see it and run it up there. Or we were doing the iframe embedding, and then we were going to start pulling directly from our SQL server through APIs to bring that forward, and like create things. So, you know, having those embedded analytics now, and I think that was 5 years ago, 5 years ago, from my perspective, some of this stuff hadn't been fully formed yet. But, you know, thinking about it now, it's like, wait, how can we do that better? So no, exactly. And this has been absolutely great, because now I actually see some of the tools that I've used in other companies that were bigger and more, you know, mature in their data dev practices, how on the back end it actually truly worked. So, you know, thank you for that.
I did see, so Oak, I saw your question. Is there a Tableau for dabblers type course? I love that. I'm assuming you mean like Tableau data dev for dabblers? And if that's what you mean, where I would probably point you, shameless self-promotion, is back to the Tableau coders tug. You know, I wasn't exaggerating when I said earlier, like, if you have never written a line of code in your life and you start with video 1 about the REST API and Tableau coders, that's where we start. We literally start with, what is code? How do I write code? And then we go into, what's an API? How do I talk to an API? What then? Tableau specific things. So I would recommend starting there, since it is all Tableau specific, and that might help you with some of the content, some of the concepts. But also happy to discuss offline. You know, hit me up on any of those 3 places that you see on the screen now, and we can talk more if you're interested.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Yeah, and I actually saw that as well, and just added some general of the Tableau tips and tricks in there as well, and just links to a few things too. So thank you for those more specific data dev ones as well. But no other questions are coming in the Q&A. And Sarah just shared, if it's for non-code, I have a workbook I created for learning resources. That is fantastic. I am going to open this up so that I have it for a link of these and go through this. Thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing that.
Ooh, this is nice.
Oh yeah, it's huge. Oh my God, this is amazing.
Very cool. Thank you, Sarah.
Yes. So I will be adding this link as well, Sarah, into everything. But with all of that, Kyle, thank you. This has been absolutely fantastic learning about all of these and seeing all the different tips and tricks. Honestly, my brain's ready to just start, you know, getting my site back up. I kind of let it lapse, my developer site back up, and going from there. So thank you so much, Kyle.
Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure.
I can talk about this stuff all day long. You know that. So
I do.
And I mean it. If anyone on the call is, I know sometimes you don't know how to ask, or you don't know what you don't know, and you don't want to do it in front of the group, I get it. I mean it. Reach out if you want to talk more one-on-one. I'm always happy. It makes my heart happy to make new little baby data devs. So
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kyle. Yes. Awesome. So with that, put away. I did just drop some, Kyle, if you don't mind dropping your screen share. With that, I did just drop some additional links. We've been dropping links the whole time while Kyle's been talking to all the stuff. I will have those in the recording link as well as in the recap we do today. I also dropped some links for connecting with us here at the DataPride Tug. But just, thank you so much, Kyle, again. And to just close us out, and we're waiting for the share to work. Awesome, fantastic. We will be having the feedback and recording. We will be sending an email survey after this once this is all wrapped up. So please provide feedback. We do look at those and we always want to hear more. We will have this event recording on our YouTube channel. Should be within the next 24 hours. And we will note that once it's done in our actual recap email to everyone who attended or RSVP'd as well. And we'll have all of these links from Kyle. And then actually, we already have the link to sign up for our next event in February. We will be having some Iron Viz reflections and asking better questions. We are so excited. We are having individuals who had submitted for Iron Viz. And if you didn't check it out, yesterday on Tableau, social media, the top 10 and the 3 finalists who will be on stage for Iron Viz have been announced. And so you can check out that. Congrats to the top 10 and to Pata, Jessica, and Chris, who will be on the stage. But that is February 15th at 10 a.m. Mountain, 12 Eastern. So with that, thank you, everybody. We are so excited to be kicking off this new year and to be doing it in such style with such new learning and with all of you. So with that, thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of your day and a wonderful weekend. Talk to you all soon.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.